I'm Elena, 33 years old, and a few months ago, I found out my own sister had stolen my identity to buy $1 million house. She forged my signature, racked up massive debt, and threw a lavish housewarming party like nothing ever happened. When I confronted her in front of all her guests, with the bank's fraud investigator by my side, everything unraveled. The champagne barely had time to chill before the truth came crashing down. She said I was jealous. I looked my sister in the eye and chose to stop being the quiet one. Before I share how I reclaim my name and my power, let me know where you're watching from. And if you've ever had to stand up to family for the sake of your peace, hit like and subscribe. Because this story might be the reminder you didn't know you needed. My life in San Francisco unfolded just the way I had planned. After graduating with honors in finance from the University of California, Berkeley, I landed a position at Pacific Coast Wealth Management, one of the most respected asset management firms on the West Coast. For over 6 years, I climbed the ranks steadily, starting as a junior analyst and eventually becoming a senior financial advisor, managing portfolios for high-net-worth clients. My apartment in North Beach wasn't lavish, just a modest one-bedroom, but it was mine. Every piece of furniture in that space had been carefully chosen, bought with cash and intention, never debt. I took pride in that. My parents, Isabella and Carlos Rodriguez, had always instilled in us the value of financial responsibility, especially after facing hardship early in their marriage. Live within your means, my father would often say, and I carried those words with me like a compass. Our bond was strong, grounded in mutual respect and tradition. Sunday dinners at their suburban home became something sacred. Mom always cooked enough for an army, and I never left without a week's worth of leftovers. Dad would talk investments with me, his eyes shining with pride that I had followed his footsteps after he retired from banking. Everything in my life felt stable, structured, and perhaps most importantly, safe. And then there was Zofia, my older sister by 3 years. From the outside, we looked close. We showed up at family gatherings, exchanged birthday gifts, and played our roles as loving siblings. But beneath that polished surface ran an undercurrent of tension that had followed us since childhood. Sophia was always the beautiful one, the one with Mom's striking blue eyes and golden hair that shimmered like sunlight. I took after Dad, more grounded and analytical, with brown hair and eyes that no one ever called remarkable. While I earned praise for grades and discipline, Sophia won hearts with her charm. Her personality could light up a room, and doors seemed to open effortlessly for her. Doors that I had to push, pry, and sometimes break down. Sophia could sell ice to an Eskimo, our grandmother used to say with a chuckle, and it was true. She had an uncanny way of getting what she wanted, whether it was the last cookie, the lead in the school play, or most memorably, the undivided attention of our parents. The pattern started early, painfully early, if I'm being honest. I was 6 when I got a limited edition Barbie doll for my birthday. It was the one gift I had circled in the catalog, the one I'd dreamed about for months. 2 days later, I found her in Sophia's room, hair chopped off, clothes missing, a look of neglect that made my little heart sink. I ran to our parents, expecting justice, but Sophia cried, said I'd given it to her and simply changed my mind. "Be generous with your sister," my mother said, dabbing Sophia's crocodile tears. That day, I learned something that would shape much of my life. Truth matters less than perception, especially when it comes to Sophia. As we grew older, that same pattern of borrowing evolved into something more persistent and far more frustrating. In high school, she would take my clothes without asking, return them stained or stretched out, and then act surprised when I was upset. In college, she used my student ID to sneak into campus events, after losing her own privileges from some sorority party mishap. And after graduation, she conveniently forgot she was logged into our shared Amazon account and used my saved credit card to buy herself things I would never afford on impulse. Every time, there was an excuse, a tearful apology, a promise it wouldn't happen again. And every time, I forgave her, because that's what family is supposed to do, right? Still, I tried to set boundaries. I never shared my passwords, kept all my documents locked in a filing cabinet, and monitored my credit like a hawk. I thought I was being smart, cautious, responsible, while Sophia floated from job to job, real estate agent, marketing coordinator, even a stint as a personal shopper. I built my career brick by brick. Then came the wedding. She married Marco Perez, a commercial developer, in a lavish ceremony partially bankrolled by our parents. Despite their modest retirement savings, I said nothing. I smiled for the photos. At that time, I was still single, still focused, until David Miller came along. David wasn't like the others. We met at a charity fundraiser 2 years ago, and from the start there was something grounding about him. A pediatric physical therapist, he brought a mix of compassion and practicality to everything he did. He understood my cautious approach to money, even if he was a bit more spontaneous. "You balance me out," he liked to say, pulling me away from spreadsheets to watch the sunset or try that quirky little cafe on the corner. For the first time, I didn't feel like I had to explain myself. I could just be. With my career on solid ground and my relationship with David deepening every day, I began setting my sights on my next goal: buying a home of my own. For 3 years, I saved diligently. No vacations, no impulse shopping sprees, not even that new handbag I'd admired for months. My recent promotion and year-end bonus finally brought that dream within reach. David and I had started casually browsing listings. Nothing too serious yet, just dipping our toes in. The Friday before that bank notification arrived, we hosted a small gathering at my apartment to celebrate my upcoming 30th birthday. Sophia and Marco came by with an expensive bottle of champagne and a card that read, "Here's to new beginnings." I remember Sophia hugging me tighter than usual and whispering, "Everything's going to change soon, little sister." I assumed she meant my milestone birthday, or perhaps she'd caught wind of David's subtle hints about a future proposal. If only I had known what she truly meant. That message came on a Tuesday morning while I was prepping for a client meeting. My phone buzzed with what I thought was just another routine bank alert. Instead, it stopped me cold. "Your monthly payment of $4,667.9 for loan Kretzurauper 582937 is due in 7 days. I blinked, convinced it was a glitch. I had a small car loan, a modest credit card balance, both paid on time, but nothing even remotely resembling a monthly payment that size. My fingers trembling, I dialed the bank's customer service number, trying to stay composed. "Good morning, Golden Gate Financial. This is Mr. Evans. How may I assist you today?" came the polished voice on the other end. "Hi, I just received a notification about a loan payment, but I think there's been some kind of mistake," I explained carefully, trying to keep my voice steady. "I don't have any large loans, nothing even close to that." "I'd be happy to look into that for you," he replied. "Can I get your name and the last 4 digits of your social security number for verification?" I gave him the information, my heart pounding in my chest. There was a pause, too long, too quiet, the kind that sends a chill through your bones. "Ms. Rodriguez," he finally said, "according to our records, you initiated a mortgage loan for $800,000 about 6 weeks ago. The property is listed at 1234 Bayview Drive. The loan was approved based on your credit history, verified income, and the property's appraisal." My stomach twisted into knots. "There must be some mistake," I said, barely above a whisper. "I never applied for a mortgage, certainly not one for $800,000. And I've never even heard of a property on Bayview Drive." "I completely understand your concern, Ms. Rodriguez," Mr. Evans replied, his tone turning more serious. "This is indeed a serious matter. From what I'm seeing, the loan application was submitted online using all of your personal information. Social security number, employment details, and even your digital signature." My head started to spin. Identity theft? Of course. But who could possibly have access to that much of my personal data? "I need to dispute this immediately," I said, the financial advisor in me kicking into gear. "This is fraud." Mr. Evans's voice took on a more urgent edge. "In that case, I'll transfer you to our fraud department right away. They'll walk you through the complaint process and ensure the account is frozen to prevent further activity." And so began 2 hours lost in a maze of bureaucracy. Phone calls, forms, verifications, and an appointment set for the next day at the local branch. I had to cancel a major client presentation to be there, but at that point, my financial future was hanging by a thread. That night, I pulled credit reports from all 3 major bureaus. What I found made me physically ill. Not only had someone taken out an $800,000 mortgage in my name, but 3 new credit cards had been opened over the past month, each maxed out with a combined balance of over $50,000. The charges? High-end furniture, designer appliances, luxury electronics. And all of them, every single one, shipped to 1234 Bayview Drive, a house I'd never seen in a neighborhood I had no connection to. With shaking fingers, I typed the address into Google Maps. The street view loaded slowly, then revealed a stunning Victorian home, complete with manicured lawns and a grand circular driveway. I zoomed out to get a better look at the area, and my breath caught in my throat. Presidio Heights, an exclusive enclave where homes start at $1 million on a good day. Sophia had mentioned this neighborhood more than once over the past year, sighing dramatically while scrolling through listings, dragging me to open houses she could never afford. One day, she'd said wistfully, gazing at a home almost identical to the one on the screen, "You'll live in a house like this." A terrible suspicion began to take shape. I called Sophia immediately. The call went straight to voicemail. I sent her a text. "We need to talk ASAP. It's urgent." No response. I dialed my parents next. "Mom, has Sophia said anything lately about buying a new house?" There was the slightest pause, too slight for most people to catch, but I caught it. "Why do you ask, sweetheart?" she said gently. "Please, Mom, this is really important," she sighed. "Well, yes. She and Marco just bought a beautiful place in Presidio Heights. They're over the moon. They're even throwing a housewarming party this Saturday. I thought you knew. You didn't get an invite?" My blood ran cold. "What's the address?" "Let me check the card. 1234 Bayview Drive." "Elena, what's going on? You sound strange." I couldn't explain it to her. Not yet. Not until I had all the facts. "I'll call you back, Mom. I just need to check something first." After hanging up, I searched my inbox, and there it was. A digital invite from Sophia, sent 3 days earlier, buried beneath a pile of work emails. Subject line: "Celebrating our dream home," complete with a glittery gif of clinking champagne glasses. I hadn't even opened it, assuming it was just another one of Sophia's over-the-top soirees. But the invitation confirmed my worst fear. Sophia and Marco were throwing a housewarming party at 1234 Bayview Drive. The same address tied to the fraudulent mortgage in my name. That night, sleep wasn't even an option. I sat at my desk until dawn, poring over articles about identity theft, the legal consequences of mortgage fraud, and the long, painful process of reclaiming one's financial life. The more I read, the heavier everything felt. This wasn't just about money, it was about betrayal. A violation so intimate it made me physically ill. By sunrise, one question burned through my mind like a fever. How could my own sister do this to me? The meeting at Golden Gate Financial the next morning confirmed my worst fears. I sat across from Mr. Evans and his colleague from the Fraud Investigation Unit, a calm and composed woman named Martha Reyes. They laid out the paperwork across the glossy surface of the conference table like pieces of a puzzle I didn't want to see completed. "Ms. Rodriguez, this is the mortgage application submitted in your name," Martha said, sliding a stack of papers toward me. "Do you recognize this signature?" I leaned in. The signature looked eerily similar to mine, familiar yet off. The circle in the O was too perfectly round, and the cross on the T stretched too far. "This isn't my signature," I said quietly, "but someone worked hard to make it look like it was." "And this," she continued, handing me a scanned copy of a driver's license, "was the ID submitted during the online verification." My stomach dropped. It was my license, the one I'd reported missing 3 months ago, right after dinner with Sophia. To complete this kind of application, someone would have needed very comprehensive personal information, Mr. Evans explained gently. Your social security number, employment history, tax returns, bank statements. My sister would have access to almost all of that, I said, barely above a whisper. We grew up in the same house. She knows my birth date, my mother's maiden name, probably even the name of my first pet, answers to every security question. And she's been to my apartment dozens of times. Martha nodded knowingly. Unfortunately, familial fraud is more common than most people think, though rarely on this scale. Do you have any direct evidence linking your sister to this? Not yet, I said, but I'm working on it. After leaving the bank, I called a private investigator David had recommended, a former client of his named Leo Garcia. Leo agreed to take the case, to dig into Sophia and Marco's finances and trace any evidence that could connect them to the fraudulent loan. While I waited for his report, I turned to the modern surveillance tool of our age, social media, and there it was, posted just a week ago. A photo of Sophia, beaming in front of 1234 Bayview Drive, her hand perched proudly on the mailbox. The caption read, "Dreams do come true, Huts at new home, hearts blessed." The comments section was flooded with congratulations and curious questions about how they managed to afford such a stunning property. But it was Sophia's reply to one comment that made my blood boil. Hard work and smart financial planning pay off Tarkar deserved. I kept scrolling, my hands trembling. Photos of the gourmet kitchen, Marco grilling on the expansive rooftop deck, a selfie of the two of them cozying up in front of a marble fireplace. They were living large, posting, posing, celebrating in a home bought with my stolen identity. And I was left picking up the pieces of a financial life that had been burned to the ground. That afternoon, the official housewarming invitation arrived in my mailbox. A cream-colored card with raised gold lettering. Elegant and expensive. Inside, Sophia had scribbled a message in her bubbly handwriting. "Can't wait to show you our new place. You're going to be so jealous. Love you, little sis." My hands trembled as I read it. That evening, after much insistence on my part, my parents came over. They sat uneasily on my couch, while I paced the living room like a caged animal trying to hold in the storm. "Did you help Sophia and Marco buy their new house?" I asked bluntly. They exchanged a look, one of those long, silent glances parents think their children can't read. "No, sweetheart," my father finally said. "We couldn't. You know our retirement savings are modest at best." "Then how do you think they managed to buy an $800,000 home in Presidio Heights?" "Marco's business has struggled since the pandemic, and Sophia hasn't held a stable job in years." My mother twisted her wedding ring nervously. "Sophia told us Marco made a few smart investments, and they paid off. We didn't ask for details." "And that didn't seem suspicious to you?" I pressed. "That out of nowhere they could afford a mansion?" "Elena," my father said sternly, "what exactly are you suggesting?" I took a deep breath and told them everything. The fraudulent loan, the stolen identity, the credit cards, the investigation. As I spoke, my mother's face tightened with disbelief, while my father's turned a deep, burning red. "There must be some mistake," my mother insisted. "Sophia would never do something like this." "Wouldn't she?" I said bitterly. "What about when she took my Barbie doll when I was 6, or borrowed my clothes in high school without asking, or used my student ID in college, or accidentally used my credit card? This isn't new. This is just Sophia doing what Sophia has always done, taking what's mine, only now on a much larger scale." My father stood up slowly, his banker's mind processing the implications. "If what you're saying is true, this is a federal crime. Sophia could go to prison." "I know," I said, my voice catching in my throat. "Do you think that's what I want? But what about me, Dad? My credit is destroyed. I'm nearly $1 million in debt. My future is crumbling because Sophia wanted a luxury home she couldn't afford." My mother began to cry. "There has to be another explanation. Maybe Marco did this behind her back." I let out a sharp, bitter laugh. "Mom, you've been making excuses for Sophia our entire lives. When does it stop?" They left a short while later, promising to talk to Sophia, to hear her side. But I knew it wouldn't change anything. Sophia would cry, deny, manipulate. She'd twist their guilt into blind loyalty, the way she always had. That pattern was too deeply rooted to break with just facts. After they left, I collapsed onto my bed, the weight of betrayal pressing down on my chest like a boulder. David arrived not long after and held me while I cycled through tears and fury. "I can't believe she did this to me," I sobbed into his shoulder. "My own sister. Does she hate me that much?" He stroked my hair, his voice calm and steady. "I don't think it's about hate, Elena. Some people just believe they're entitled to things they didn't earn. They don't think about the consequences, because they've never really had to face any." David's words stirred a memory I had buried years ago, one that stung just as sharply now as it had then. I was 12, Sophia was 15. She had stolen my diary and read my most private thoughts aloud to her friends during a sleepover. I was humiliated, devastated by the violation. When I confronted her, tears in my eyes and voice shaking, she merely shrugged and said, If you didn't want anyone to read it, you shouldn't have written it. No apology, no remorse, just a casual dismissal of my pain, as if my emotions were an inconvenience to her amusement. That night, as David slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling, numb. The future I had built so carefully, so meticulously, felt like it had been reduced to ashes. The down payment I had saved over 3 years might now go to legal fees. My pristine credit score, once my badge of discipline and control, was in ruins. Even my recent promotion could be at risk if this scandal bled into my professional reputation. And for what? Because Sophia wanted a house she couldn't afford and decided that my identity, my financial name and worth, was hers to take? The next morning, Leo Garcia called with his preliminary findings. Marco Perez's development company is on the brink of collapse, he reported. They've been living off credit cards for months. There's no way they would have qualified for that mortgage legally. What about the application itself? I asked, gripping the phone tighter. I'm still working on that, Leo said. But here's something interesting. Sophia's laptop was taken in for repair last month. The technician remembers her asking how to use Photoshop to edit PDF documents. Another piece of the puzzle clicked into place. Sophia hadn't just used my information. She had digitally doctored my documents to commit mortgage fraud. By Friday, 3 days after uncovering the scheme, my emotions had crystallized from grief into resolve. I called my friend Camila Vargas, a sharp, unflinching attorney who specialized in financial crimes. From everything you've told me, Camila said after listening intently, this is clear-cut identity theft and mortgage fraud. The evidence is compelling. If you pursue this, your sister could face real prison time. What are my options? I asked quietly. You could press criminal charges, which may result in incarceration. Or you could go the civil route. Force her to transfer the property back to you or sell it to repay the debt. And if I do nothing, Camilla's tone darkened. Then you are liable. The debt is in your name, your credit is already damaged, and foreclosure will destroy it further. That could affect your ability to rent, get a job, or buy a car, for years. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. This wasn't just about betrayal. Sophia hadn't just broken my trust. She had put the wrecking ball straight through my financial future. As Saturday drew closer, so did my resolve. I had made my decision. This time, Sophia wasn't going to get away with it. Not with a shrug, not with tears, and certainly not with another hollow apology. There would be no more excuses, no more forgiveness without consequence. For once in her life, my sister was going to be held accountable for the damage she had done. That morning, I met with Mr. Evans at the Golden Gate Financial Branch office. After nearly a week of internal investigation, the bank had gathered enough evidence to confirm the fraud. We verified that the IP address used to submit the loan application matches the home internet account registered to your sister, Mr. Evans explained, laying out a thick stack of documents on his desk. The digital signature was created using software licensed under the name Sophia Perez. We also have security footage of her entering one of our branch offices to submit supplemental paperwork. I swallowed hard. So, what happens now? That depends on you, Ms. Rodriguez, he replied. The bank can pursue this as a criminal matter, or we can work with you directly to find a solution that protects your financial standing. I took a long breath before answering. I want to confront her, today, at the housewarming party. I want her to admit what she did, in front of the very people whose opinions matter most to her. Mr. Evans raised an eyebrow. That's an unconventional approach. My sister has been taking things from me all her life, without ever facing the consequences, I said, leaning forward. This time, it ends differently. I paused. Would you be willing to come with me, as a representative of the bank? He hesitated. It's not standard protocol, but given the situation, yes, I can attend in an official capacity. We spent the next hour mapping everything out. Mr. Evans would bring certified copies of the forged loan documents, the bank's investigation summary, and the paperwork required to begin transferring legal responsibility for the loan back to Sophia and Marco. I then called Leo Garcia, the private investigator. I need you at the house before the party starts, I told him. Bring everything you found. I'll be there, he promised. And there's one more thing you should know. Your brother-in-law, Marco, he may not be fully aware of what Sophia did. Based on the messages I recovered, It seems he genuinely believed they qualified for the loan legally. That last detail gave me pause. Was Marco truly another unsuspecting victim, just like me? Or had he chosen to ignore the red flags in favor of a dream house? Either way, he was part of it now. And he too would have to face the music, alongside Sophia. Next, I called David. "Are you sure you want to go through with this?" he asked after I laid out my plan. "It's going to get messy." "I'm sure," I said firmly. "Sophia needs to face what she's done, and I need to stand up for myself for once." "Then I'll be right there beside you," he promised. Just like that. No hesitation. Just steady, quiet support, the kind that anchors you when the storm rolls in. As I prepared for the confrontation, doubt began to creep in, soft at first, then louder. Guilt followed. Despite everything, Sophia was still my sister. We had shared so many moments, childhood birthday cakes, holiday traditions, inside jokes that only siblings could understand. Was I really going to expose her lies in front of everyone? Could I live with possibly sending her to prison? But then I remembered what Camilla had told me, the ripple effects I'd face if I stayed silent. Sophia hadn't just stolen my identity, she had jeopardized my entire future. Renting an apartment, applying for jobs, getting a car loan, or even affordable insurance. Every aspect of my adult life now hung in the balance. I made one final call to our parents, giving them a last chance to intervene. "I'm going to confront Sophia at the housewarming party today," I told them. "If you can get her to admit what she's done and agree to fix it, I might consider handling this privately." There was a pause. Then my father cleared his throat awkwardly. "We tried to talk to her, Elena. She denies everything," she said. "You're just jealous of her success." My mother's voice dropped to a whisper. "We don't know what to believe anymore, sweetheart." "Then you'll know the truth today," I replied, "along with everyone else." After hanging up, I sat quietly on the edge of my bed. A shoebox of childhood keepsakes open beside me. Photos of Sophia and me building sandcastles on the beach, holding hands at our grandparents' anniversary party, making goofy faces at my college graduation. Little frozen moments that once made sisterhood feel real. I picked up a faded friendship bracelet, one Sophia had made for me when I was 10. A rare gesture of affection during a summer she was grounded and had no one else to play with. As soon as the restriction was lifted, she drifted right back to her friends. But for those few short weeks, we had been close, genuinely close. And now I wondered, had she ever truly loved me? Or was I always just convenient? As the afternoon settled in, a clarity washed over me, sharper than anything I had felt since discovering the fraud. This confrontation wasn't just about a mortgage or a house. It was about finally shattering a lifelong pattern, one stitched together with quiet thefts, easy excuses, betrayals followed by forgiveness. It was about reclaiming my voice after decades of silence and self-sacrifice. I dressed deliberately. A sleek black sheath dress, modest jewelry, nothing flashy that Sophia could twist into some kind of personal attack. David picked me up at 4, looking calm and steady in a crisp blue button-down. "You ready?" he asked. Gently squeezing my hand, I drew in a slow breath. "Ready." We arranged to meet Mr. Evans and Leo Garcia just 1 block from Sophia's house at 4:30, 30 minutes before the party officially began. The housewarming was scheduled from 5 to 8, giving guests plenty of time to admire the palace Sophia had fraudulently acquired. As we drove into the heart of Presidio Heights, my phone buzzed with a text from Sophia. "Can't wait to see you at the party. Get ready to be blown away by our new palace." No guilt, no fear of being found out. Just the same shameless, unrepentant bragging she'd always done. Whatever flicker of doubt I still had about this plan. Gone. Today, Sophia would finally learn that choices have consequences. We arrived right on time. Mr. Evans was already waiting, a leather briefcase tucked under his arm, filled with hard evidence of Sophia's crimes. Leo pulled up minutes later, adding his findings to our growing arsenal. "According to the loan paperwork," Mr. Evans said, flipping through his notes, "there should be a realtor's lockbox at the side gate with a spare key, left there for the appraiser. The code is 5829. David glanced at me. "Are we really doing this before guests even arrive?" I nodded without hesitation. "I want to be inside when she shows up. I want her to feel instantly that something is wrong." We walked the final block to 1234 Bayview Drive. The house was even more stunning in person. A grand Victorian with tall white columns, manicured hedges, and a polished 3-car garage. My sister had exquisite taste, especially when spending my credit. Just as predicted, we found the lockbox, punched in the code, and retrieved the key. There was something surreal about the act, something oddly righteous. Technically, the house was still in my name, after all. I unlocked the front door and stepped into the foyer. It was breathtaking. Marble floors gleamed beneath my feet. A sweeping staircase curled gracefully toward the second floor. A crystal chandelier sparkled from the high ceiling like a frozen galaxy. The furniture was all brand new, no doubt purchased with those maxed-out credit cards, under my name. Through an arched doorway, I could see caterers in the kitchen, arranging hors d'oeuvres on silver trays. One of them approached, clipboard in hand. "Mrs. Perez," she asked, "we've set up the bar in the sunroom per the instructions. The bartender should arrive around 4:45. "I'm not Mrs. Perez," I said calmly, meeting her gaze. "I'm Elena Rodriguez, the woman whose identity was stolen to pay for this house." Her eyes widened. She took a step back, clearly deciding this was way above her pay grade. We moved through the house slowly, noting each luxury appliance, every high-end furnishing. In the primary bedroom, Sophia's designer clothes were crammed into an open closet, many of them still with tags attached. Marco's home office was decked out in top-of-the-line electronics. The living spaces looked like pages torn from an interior design magazine. "She's been spending your money generously," Leo Garcia remarked, snapping a photo of a $12,000 bedroom set receipt with a raised eyebrow. At exactly 4:50, we heard the garage door open. I took my place in the center of the living room, flanked by David, Mr. Evans, and Leo standing just behind me. My heart pounded in my chest like a warning drum as I heard Sophia's bright, carefree voice. "I'm sure the caterers have everything ready. I can't wait to see everyone's faces when they walk in," she chirped. The door from the garage opened, and there she was, arms full of shopping bags. Marco followed close behind, carrying a crate of champagne. They both froze when they saw me standing in the middle of what they thought was their living room. "Elena," Sophia's voice pitched up in surprise. "You're early. How did you even get in?" "Hello, Sophia," I said calmly. I used the spare key listed in the mortgage documents that are in my name. Her face drained of color. Marco looked between us, clearly lost. "What is she talking about, Sophia?" Sophia recovered quickly, her nervous laughter filling the awkward space. "Elena, this is crazy. You can't just barge into someone's home before a party and start—" "Actually," Mr. Evans interjected, stepping forward, "Ms. Rodriguez has every right to be here. Legally, the home is still in her name. I'm Mr. Evans from Golden Gate Financial. I work in the bank's fraud investigation division." Marco looked stunned. "Wait, what?" "The house is in our name. We signed the paperwork." "No, Marco," I said softly but firmly. "Sophia forged my signature on the loan documents. She stole my identity to secure a mortgage that neither of you could legally qualify for." Just then, the doorbell rang, cutting the tension like a blade. Sophia darted a glance toward the entryway. "That must be the first guest," she muttered, trying to slip past me. "We'll discuss this nonsense later." "By all means," I replied, stepping aside. "Let's discuss it, with everyone present." Over the next 20 minutes, Sophia tried desperately to hold together the illusion of a gracious hostess. But I saw it in her eyes, the fear, the dread, the cracks forming beneath the surface. Guests trickled in steadily, friends, colleagues, neighbors, all marveling at the beautiful home and congratulating Sophia and Marco on their success. I waited patiently, letting the room fill with expectation. Then, when the house was buzzing and Sophia stood in the grand room surrounded by admiring friends, I tapped a spoon gently against my champagne glass. "I'd like to make a toast," I said, my voice carrying effortlessly through the open concept space. "To new beginnings." Sophia's eyes widened in panic. She began to move toward me, but it was too late. "For those who don't know me," I continued, "I'm Elena Rodriguez, Sophia's sister, and I'd like to congratulate her on this beautiful new home, purchased with my stolen identity and nearly $1 million in fraudulent debt under my name." A stunned silence swept across the room like a cold wind. Sophia's smile froze on her face, then melted into fury. "Elena, you're making a scene," she hissed. This isn't the time or the place. Actually, I replied evenly. I think it's exactly the time and place. I turned to the crowd, whose cheerful expressions had faded into confusion and concern. My sister forged my signature on mortgage documents, stole my personal information, and opened multiple credit accounts in my name to furnish this home. And I'd like to introduce Mr. Evans from Golden Gate Financial, who's here to speak about the fraud investigation. Mr. Evans stepped forward, his voice steady and professional. I can confirm, he said, that the mortgage on this property was obtained fraudulently using Ms. Rodriguez's personal information. We have significant evidence, including IP address records, security footage, and falsified documents. Sophia's face twisted into a mask of rage and fear. This is ridiculous. Marco, tell them. But Marco stood frozen, like someone who'd just watched a building collapse in slow motion. Sophia, what did you do? He whispered. Nothing, they're lying, she snapped, then turned to the guest with a voice thick with the wounded tone I knew far too well. Elena has always been jealous of me. She can't stand to see me happy. It was the perfect moment for Leo Garcia to step forward. Mrs. Perez, he said calmly, we have copies of your text messages discussing how to access your sister's personal information. We have a service order from the computer repair shop where you asked how to edit PDF documents, and we have your browser history, searches about how to forge digital signatures, and the legal consequences of identity theft. A chilling silence fell over the room. Guests began inching toward the door, offering awkward apologies as they slipped out. Please don't go, Sophia cried desperately. This is all just a misunderstanding. At that moment, our parents entered, their faces frozen in disbelief. My mother raised her hand to her mouth, horrified. Mom? Dad? Sophia rushed toward them. Elena's lost her mind. She's saying awful, horrible lies about me, but my father's face had gone stone cold. Are they lies, Sophia? He asked. Because the bank called us yesterday about the investigation. You knew? Sophia's voice cracked with betrayal. You knew, and you still came to my party? We came to see if it was true, my mother whispered, tears forming in her eyes. We couldn't believe you would do something like this. Marco, silent until now, had been scanning the documents Mr. Evans handed him. When he finally looked up, his face was pale, stunned. This loan application. This is your signature, Sophia. I saw you sign it. You told me it was for your investment account. The last of Sophia's composure shattered. Fine, she screamed, tears spilling freely now. Yes, I did it. We were drowning in debt. Marco's company was failing. We were about to lose everything. So you decided I should lose everything instead, I asked quietly. You've always had it so easy, she sobbed. Perfect credit score, perfect job, perfect boyfriend. Everything just falls into your lap. I worked for everything I have, I said, voice steady. I saved. I made responsible choices. Nothing ever just fell into my lap. We just needed a fresh start, she pleaded, turning toward our parents. I was going to pay it all back once Marco's business recovered. We were going to refinance in our names. And if it never recovers? My father asked softly. Sophia had no answer. Marco's voice was colder than I'd ever heard it. You lied to me. You committed fraud and dragged me into it. Do you even understand what you've done to us? To our future? The remaining guests had quietly slipped out, leaving only family and the professionals I had brought with me. Sophia now stood alone in the middle of her dream home, abandoned by the very people she had tried so hard to impress. What happens now? Marco asked Mr. Evans. That depends on Miss Rodriguez, he said, turning toward me. As the victim, she has several options on how to proceed. All eyes fell on me. The moment I had feared for so long had finally arrived. The days following the confrontation at the housewarming party were a whirlwind of legal meetings, bank appointments, and emotionally fraught conversations. Once the guests had left and Sophia's tearful confession had quieted, Mr. Evans outlined the next steps. Ms. Rodriguez has 3 primary options, he explained to those still present. She can press criminal charges, which may lead to arrest and prosecution for identity theft and mortgage fraud. She can pursue civil action to seek financial restitution and restore her credit, or she can choose to negotiate private repayment without court involvement. Marco, still visibly shaken by the truth about his wife, turned to me. Elena, I swear I didn't know. Sophia told me the down payment came from a trust fund she'd never mentioned before. I thought the house was in our name. I believed him. Marco had always come across as direct and honest in our interactions, and the shock on his face didn't seem staged. He was a victim of Sophia's deception too, though in a different way. That night, I gave no answers. I needed time to weigh the legal implications, consult professionals, and most of all, process the storm of emotions churning inside me. So I left them standing in their fraudulently purchased dream home, uncertain what their future would now hold. The following Monday, I met with Camila Vargas to review my legal options. Criminal charges, she said, would almost certainly lead to jail time for Sophia. Mortgage fraud on this scale, combined with identity theft, typically results in a sentence of 3 to 5 years, plus restitution. The thought of my sister behind bars made me physically ill, despite everything she had done. What about civil remedies? I asked. You could sue for damages, Camila said, including the hit to your credit, emotional distress, and any expenses related to correcting the fraud. The court would likely order the home sold to pay back the loan, with the remaining proceeds going to you. And the third option, private repayment? I asked. Camila's expression darkened. It's risky. Without court enforcement, Sophia could renege on any deal. Given her history, I wouldn't recommend it. After careful consideration, I chose a middle path. I wouldn't pursue criminal charges, yet. But I would file them and keep them active, suspended like a legal sword of Damocles above Sophia's head. To avoid prosecution, she would have to comply, fully, with a structured restitution plan. The terms were non-negotiable. Sophia and Marco would transfer full ownership of the home to me. They would vacate the property within 30 days. They would sign sworn confessions and accept legal responsibility for all fraudulent accounts. They would enroll in credit counseling and financial therapy. And Sophia would be barred from accessing our parents' financial information without oversight. Marco agreed immediately. Sophia resisted until Marco issued a quiet ultimatum. You could lose everything because of this, he told her. My business reputation, my future, my freedom. Signing these papers is the only way forward. 2 weeks after the confrontation, Sophia and Marco sat across from me in the sterile conference room of Camila's law office, signing the documents that would seal their fate. Sophia couldn't meet my eyes. When she signed her name, her real name this time, on each legal form, her hand trembled. I'm sorry, Elena, she whispered as we gathered our things. I never thought about how this would affect you. That's always been the problem, Sophia, I said quietly. You never think about how your actions affect anyone but yourself. Untangling the financial chaos took months. The bank eventually reversed the fraudulent charges and removed the fake mortgage from my credit history. My credit score, which had dropped by nearly 200 points, slowly began to rise again. The credit monitoring service I signed up for sent weekly updates, each one a small reassurance that my financial identity was healing. It felt less like fixing a spreadsheet and more like recovering a part of myself. Sophia hadn't just stolen money, she'd stolen peace of mind. And I was determined to reclaim it. The house proved to be a trickier issue. I couldn't afford the taxes or upkeep on such a luxury property, but selling it in a down market would mean taking a loss. After careful conversations with financial advisors, I decided to rent it out temporarily to cover expenses until the market improved. It wasn't ideal, but it was a step toward stability. I didn't need to live in a mansion to feel powerful. I needed control, clarity, and the ability to choose my next chapter. And that began with removing the burden of Sophia's fantasy from my reality. My relationship with my parents entered a strange and delicate phase. They were still struggling to reconcile their love for both daughters with the reality of what one had done to the other. Family dinners became quiet and awkward, Sophia's absence heavy in the air. They avoided mentioning her, as if silence could spare us more pain. 3 months after the confrontation, my father finally broke the quiet. We failed you both, he said. We should have taught Sophia consequences, not made excuses. We were afraid of her anger. My mother added softly, it was easier to please her than confront her. We didn't realize we were setting her up to fail. Their admission, though late, brought a strange comfort. For the first time, I felt like they truly saw the full picture, saw me. They began therapy, hoping to understand their patterns and how they'd enabled the dysfunction. It didn't erase the past, but it gave us a new place to start. We began having more honest conversations. They stopped minimizing what had happened and started asking how they could support me. That shift, though quiet, was monumental. 6 months after the incident, Sophia and Marco separated. The financial strain of the restitution plan combined with the emotional wreckage was too much for their marriage to withstand. Marco moved to Pittsburgh to start fresh, putting both distance and scandal behind him. Sophia downsized to a small apartment and found a retail job, her first steady work in years. Our relationship entered an indefinite pause. The betrayal had cut too deep, the breach of trust too complete for easy forgiveness. We had no fights, no blowout, just silence and space. David remained my rock through it all. His steady presence and practical wisdom helped me navigate every legal decision and emotional storm. He listened without judgment, held me when I cried, and reminded me of my worth when I doubted it. On the 1-year anniversary of discovering the fraud, he proposed during a quiet dinner at home. "You've shown such strength and grace," he said, offering me a ring that was simple but beautiful. "I can't imagine building a future with anyone else." I said yes without hesitation. That night, we toasted not just to love, but to resilience. My dream of owning a home had been delayed, but not destroyed. The equity from the eventual sale of Sophia's house would provide a strong down payment when the time was right. David and I decided to wait until after the wedding to look for our own place. We wanted our first home together to be a symbol of something earned, not stolen. In the meantime, we prioritized building something real between us. It felt good to make plans that weren't born of crisis. This time, we were choosing what to build and how to build it. But the deepest transformation happened inside me. I learned how to set boundaries, how to demand respect without apology, and how to trust my instincts when something felt off. I became more vigilant with my finances, more guarded with my data, and less tolerant of manipulations disguised as love. But I refused to become bitter. I would not let what Sophia did define my future. I still believed in people. That belief, scarred but alive, was my real recovery. 6 months after the confrontation, I received an unexpected letter from Sophia. Unlike her earlier apologies, this one came without excuses, without blame, and without the usual self-pity. She took full ownership of her actions, acknowledged the pain she caused, and expressed true regret. "I've been working with a therapist to understand why I spent my life taking what wasn't mine," she wrote. "I don't expect you to forgive me. What I did was unforgivable. But I want you to know I'm finally facing who I was and trying to become someone better." For the first time, I believed she meant it. I didn't respond right away. Sophia's letter sat on my desk for weeks, untouched but impossible to ignore, as I sifted through the swirl of emotions it stirred. Eventually, I wrote her back, not with forgiveness, but with a cautious recognition of her effort and a quiet hope for her recovery. That word, recovery, became the theme of the year. My credit recovered. My parents found their backbone again. Sophia began unraveling the toxic patterns that had long ruled her life. And I recovered a sense of safety, a trust in my own judgment, and the understanding that standing up for yourself is not selfish, it's essential. This experience taught me lessons no financial degree ever could. First, trust is not a birthright. It must be earned and it must be maintained. Second, financial security requires vigilance, especially in a world where identity theft can happen with the click of a mouse. Third, enabling harmful behavior helps no one. Not the enabler, not the person being enabled, and certainly not the relationship between them. Fourth, advocating for yourself isn't cruelty, it's care. It's the kind of care that fosters real growth, even in those who once sought to take advantage of you. And finally, healing after betrayal is possible, but it happens on your timeline, not according to someone else's apology schedule or desire for forgiveness. I don't know what the future holds for Sophia and me. Maybe one day we'll rebuild something grounded in mutual respect, instead of a cycle of taking and excusing. Or maybe we'll remain distant relatives who smile politely at family events and say little more. Either way, I've come to accept that I can love my sister without letting her hurt me again. That balance of care without sacrifice took me years to learn, but now I know it's the only kind of love that doesn't cost your peace. As for me, next month I'll be closing on a home of my own, a modest but lovely condo that David and I can comfortably afford. Part of the down payment came from selling the house Sophia fraudulently purchased in my name. A strangely full-circle moment in this winding journey. Life doesn't always offer neat endings. More often, it gives us lessons, second chances, and the opportunity to walk away stronger and wiser. Sophia may have borrowed $800,000 under my name, but in the end, she gave me something far more valuable: the courage to stand tall and the wisdom to build healthier boundaries in every relationship I have. If you're watching this and struggling with betrayal, whether from family or financial fraud, please know, recovery is possible. Your story doesn't end with someone else's choices. You have every right to reclaim your peace, your safety, and your narrative. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Have you ever experienced betrayal by someone close? How did you respond? Would you confront them like I did, or choose a different path? If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that they are not alone in navigating complex family dynamics. Thank you for walking with me through my journey. I wish you strength, wisdom, and healing on yours.